People are terrified of losing their pets, but here are 12 pets that have been lost for years and traveled thousands of miles and still managed to find their way home. Number 11. Reckless the dog. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy devastated the northeast coast of the United States. One pair of victims of the hurricane were Chuck and Alicia James, who lived in New Jersey at the time. The storm damaged the fence in their backyard, allowing their terrier pit bull mix named Reckless to escape. Understandably, Chuck and Alicia were heartbroken. They searched for Reckless for several months before accepting he must have died in the storm. A year and a half later, the couple finally felt ready to adopt a new dog. So they visited a local animal shelter and received an astounding surprise. There was Reckless, waiting for them all this time. According to Chuck, Reckless jumped 3 feet in the air when he saw the couple, and they were all happily reunited. Number 10. Alfie the Resurrected Cat. One day in 2009, Angelo Petrillo of Milne Row, Greater Manchester, England, came upon a sad sight. A car hit an orange tomcat near his home. The cat strongly resembled Petrillo's Alfie, who was nowhere to be found. Convinced that it was his cat, they buried poor Alfie, and shortly afterward, he and his family moved to a new home. 9 months later, a friend from his old neighborhood called Petrillo to tell him a ginger cat was at their old house trying to get in. Their old home was a mere mile away, so they went to investigate. To their surprise, it was Alfie. He had put on weight, so it was obvious that someone had been taking care of him. And to this day, the Petrillos still don't know whose cat they buried or where Alfie had been all that time. Number 9. Opie the Horse. In 2003, Michelle Poole of Eureka, Arkansas, went to the hospital to have surgery on her back. Instead of paying the expensive boarding fees for her horse Opie, she asked her father in San Antonio, Texas, to watch over him while she recovered. Her father enclosed Opie in his pasture because he didn't have a stable. One night, someone clipped the metal fence and stole the horse. A woman named Deanna Bordelon was looking for a horse for her 13-year-old daughter when she came across a lovely saddlebred pinto on Craigslist. The horse was named Warbonnet and was being sold by a woman named Della Braid. According to Braid, a pastor gave her Warbonnet 8 years ago. Bordelon thought the story was weird and convoluted, so she did a little sleuthing. She found a picture of Opie and realized it was the same horse. She contacted the authorities right away. Not enough evidence was found against anyone, so no one was charged. Poole, for her part, was glad to get Opie back, and from his reaction in a video of the reunion, he was pretty happy too. Number 8. Bucky the Dog. Mark Wessels lived in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina with his black Labrador, Bucky. Unfortunately, his community banned dogs, and Wessels had to give up Bucky or be forced to move. He left the dog with his father in Virginia. Soon after, though, Bucky went missing, and Wessels feared the worst. One day, a Myrtle Beach resident named Brett Gallagher found a black lab wandering his community. The dog seemed to look like his yellow lab, so Gallagher took him home. The poor dog was emaciated, so Gallagher fed him and discovered he belonged to Wessels. As soon as the vet called him by the name of Bucky, the young dog went nuts with joy. Gallagher contacted Wessels, who brought Bucky home. It's believed Bucky used his keen senses of smell and direction to make the 500-mile trek. News reports indicate that Wessels was able to keep Bucky in his home. Number 7. Holly the Cat. Their cat Holly went on vacation in Daytona Beach, Florida. While there, Holly the cat became frightened by fireworks and ran away. They spent days looking for Holly, but were eventually forced to return to their West Palm Beach home 190 miles away. 63 days later, a West Palm Beach resident named Barb Mazzola found an emaciated cat with worn paws wandering her yard. The cat was so weak she couldn't even meow. Mazzola took the cat to the vet, who discovered a microchip under the kitty's skin. The microchip identified the cat as Holly and the Richters as her owners, who were happy to be reunited with their lost feline. Because of the state of her paws and that she had lost half of her original weight, experts believe she walked the 190 miles, which is very unusual for cats. Number 6. Andy the Tortoise. One day, Andy the Tortoise dug under the fence of his cage in Brunton, Northumberland, and escaped, much to the heartbreak of his 7-year-old owner, Ella. A nearby stream led Ella's father to believe Andy had been swept away and subsequently died. However, a year later, a friend of Ella's family noticed a tortoise walking down the road near Ella's house. The next day at school, it was mentioned, and Ella said she lost her tortoise a year ago. She was shown the little guy, and she immediately recognized him as Andy. It's believed that Andy crossed one of Britain's busiest railroads and 3 pastures full of sheep and cattle to arrive where he was found. Number 5. Suika the cat. On March 11, 2011, a tsunami swept over the Iwate Prefecture in Japan. Takeo and Kazuko Yamagishi, as they evacuated to high ground, did not have time to find their indoor-outdoor cat, Suika. When they returned home, Suika was nowhere to be found. For 3 months, the couple searched for her before giving up hope. Then 3 years later, a couple hiking in a forest not too far from the Yamagishi's home noticed a black cat curled up in the high branches of a tree. They rescued the cat and noticed her collar had a charm with the name and phone number of the owners. 3 years later, they immediately called the Yamagishis and they were reunited with little Suika. Number 4. Charles the cat. In 2009, Robin Alex of Albuquerque, New Mexico, went to New Orleans to build a Habitat for Humanity house. On returning, she discovered her cat Charles was missing. She searched for her beloved feline, but to no avail. That is, until 8 months later, when she received a call from Chicago Animal Care and Control that was both good news and bad news. They had picked up a cat with a microchip identifying her as the owner. However, if she didn't come in 6 days to pick him up, he would be euthanized. How Charles traveled 1,300 miles from home was the last thing on Alex's mind as she scrambled to find a way to get him. Unfortunately, she couldn't afford a round-trip ticket, and it looked as if poor Charles's fate was sealed. The local news picked up the story, which then went national. Alex took advantage of the media attention to ask if anyone was planning a trip to Chicago and would be able to help her. That's when fellow Albuquerque resident Lucien Sims stepped up. Sims said that he has a tabby cat who strongly resembles Charles and was moved when his mother sent him an online story about Alex and her pet. If that wasn't good enough, American Airlines did not charge a travel fee for the cat. Another story that ends well. Number 3. Fuzzy the cat. Michelle Wright of Barrington, New Hampshire, was devastated when a neighbor told her a cat resembling hers was struck and killed by a car. Fuzzy was missing, and Wright took it for granted that the cat her neighbor saw was Fuzzy. Then, in 2014, 4 years later, the Cocheco Valley Humane Society took a shelter cat down to the Pet Connections pet store. The store just happened to be down the street from Wright's home. Shortly afterward, Wright stopped in to buy pet supplies. The more she looked at the cat, the more she was convinced it was Fuzzy. Wright brought in pictures and described a unique mark on Fuzzy's paw. It was definitely her cat. Unfortunately, Wright still had to go through the procedure of adopting Fuzzy from the shelter and paid the $85 fee. However, it was money well spent because it covered Fuzzy shots and included a microchip implantation. Number 2. Crockett the couch kitty. One day, Pauline and Bill Lowe of Corringham, England, donated 2 couches to the St. Luke's Hospice charity shop in Grays, Essex. To get one of the couches through the door, it had to be disassembled inside the house and reassembled after it was outside. Soon after, the Lowes noticed their cat, Crockett, was missing. However, they couldn't figure out how he managed to slip outside or where he could have gone. One of the couches, probably the one that had to be disassembled, went to a new home. Soon after, the new owners heard a soft meow coming from their new piece of furniture. On closer investigation, they saw 2 claws poking out of the material which moved away when touched. They ripped open the fabric under the sofa and rescued poor Crockett, who got stuck inside, and he was returned to his owners. Number 1. Willow the cat. In 2006, a calico kitty named Willow escaped from her Boulder, Colorado home. Contractors were there doing renovations and they left the door open, allowing Willow to slip outside until 5 years later. One day they received a surprise phone call. Willow had been found in New York City, over 1,000 miles away. A calico cat was found wandering the streets of Manhattan and was scooped up by a good Samaritan who took the kitty to the vet. The vet scanned her for a microchip, which was how they learned her owners lived in Boulder. The Today Show, on learning about this amazing story, offered to pay for the Squires to fly to New York in exchange for an exclusive. Afterward, Willow became an overnight celebrity. How she got to New York in the first place remains a mystery. Michael Bloomberg, mayor of New York City at the time, said cats reputedly have 9 lives, and he clearly wanted to spend at least one of them in New York City.